All right, looks like we are live. So, anybody who's joining live, welcome. If you're watching the recording, thanks for taking the time. So, today we're going to be looking at some stuff in Photoshop. So, I don't think I've even used Photoshop yet on this Behance stream. So, it'll be something new, it'll be different. And I'm going to actually start out inside of Lightroom. Bring Lightroom down here. And what we're going to do is actually have a look at some of these images that I took over the past few days. So we just recently in Colorado had a giant snowstorm that dumped over 2 feet of snow in most areas. My particular location got completely covered in a couple of feet of snow. So I thought this would be some cool imagery to be able to, do some stuff with. So what I'm going to do is just look at these photos first. And these are just in a Lightroom album that I created over the past few days. So here are some like during the storm. You can see there's quite a bit of stuff. There's a nice park across the street from me. And we have, a nice view of these like lonely trees and things like that. So we've got that one. We got this one here, very stark, right? And that's what I'm looking for. But then I've also got some stuff like this. This is the side of the house, and the wind was blowing the snow so much, that it was sticking to the sides of the house and coating it. So pretty cool. I'm not sure if we can use that today. Here's here's a side yard that's just lots of different snow dunes and things like that. We might be able to pull some of those in. And then yesterday I was on the CU Boulder campus to teach, and I saw some textures and things like that I thought we could use inside of here too. So this is actually a concrete wall. It doesn't look like this in real life. It's much darker. But yeah. And let's see. So Behance is saying that I've got connectivity issues. So that's interesting, because I shouldn't. It does this every once in a while, and I'm really not sure why it does. I have a hard line to this stuff here, and it just seems to sometimes want to declare things like that. All right, so let's have a look inside of here. Say hi if you're live. It's always good to chat with people when I'm doing stuff like this. Oh, hello, William. How are you doing today? Hope well. Is everything working on your side of things, William? Do things look weird? Anything like that? Because I'm getting notices of connectivity issues, whatever that means. Hopefully the sound is mixed well with my microphone. It's not too overpowering. So let's see here. Lightroom. I'm going to start out with this image right here, I think. So what I'll do is actually just sort of start cropping this. I don't want the car in there. What I really want is pretty much this content right here. And something else we could do as I'm cropping this is take the aspect ratio to something that's something a little more standard, something like a 4:3. And let's commit that. Cool. So I'm also going to bring this directly into Photoshop. So let's go ahead and edit in Photoshop. usually takes a moment for Photoshop to open up. And to do that kind of handoff, right, from Lightroom to Photoshop. So that's happening right now. And it opened on my other monitor, so pull it down right there. Yes. Really good. Okay, so this is what we're going to use. And probably the first thing I'm going to do is just sort of play with my layer. So I'm going to grab this layer and duplicate it. And I'm also going to set a blend mode on here. That's pretty interesting right there. I wonder what all those black dots are. It's actually looking pretty cool with color burn. That's not what I'm going for, though. I want it to be really light. So we'll have to play with this later. Maybe we'll keep it as it is right now and just play as we go. So another thing I'm going to do is this stuff here. I'm going to wash out some of this with some gradients. So I'm going to grab my gradient tool. And let's get a basics set here. Let's change this out a little bit. Flip them. There we go. So I've got a gradient that's just white, that just turns transparent as it goes out, right? So with my gradient tool, I can now go ahead and start sort of filling this stuff in. Now you can see, of course, that is very, very white, which is sort of expected, but that's okay because I'm going to set a blend mode on this too. We're just kind of finishing off the edges here, right? Isolating different pieces with our gradient tool. Oops, and I did that on my background copy, which I did not want to do. So I got to hit undo a couple times, create a new layer, and work inside of that layer. Like this. Pretty good. All right, another thing we can do is blur out that gradient. So I'm going to go to my filters up here. And let's go through to my blurs. And I'm just going to do a Gaussian blur over the whole thing. With preview selected, that helps you visualize how much of a blur you're giving the thing. Again, we're going for like an ephemeral look. So sort of, not very defined, soft, floaty, that sort of thing. I'm so glad that they added the ability to hover over these different blend modes inside of Photoshop on macOS. It was something I was really used to being able to do on Windows. And, having the ability to do it on macOS now is super, super helpful, of course. Screen might be okay. Screen or lighten. Change that opacity until everything on the edges is basically faded out. All right, so now with my background copy here, we can go ahead and do some other stuff. See, that's too much right there. Color dodge just blows it completely away. Let's go with screen. And then I'm going to pull up my opacity slider and my gradient overlay layer because it works better now with my background copy having a blend mode of screen. Cool. And you know, let's give this layer 1, double click on that, get to the layer styles. I think it's going to be useful to go through and actually add some color overlay to this layer just to give it just the slightest tint of blue, which I'm just sampling from there, of course. And then it's not showing as so much white, right? So this is actually a pretty good balance here. And let's go ahead and save this as well. I'm gonna go File, Save. And we'll go ahead and save this guy. Now this is saving as a TIFF image that's coming from Lightroom, but that's okay. We could also do a save as and save it as a Photoshop Cloud document or as a PSD directly in our local file system. All that stuff is going to work out just great for us. So again, hope everybody's doing well today. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the chat. Please say hi. And let me know what's going on with you all today. So for me, after this, I get a little bit of a break, and then I have a class to teach. This week, we're going to start talking about Adobe XD in class, and that's always pretty fun. The students do enjoy XD quite a bit. In my other class, where we focus on UI and UX, we use XD for most of the class, and we're just getting into prototyping now, and prototyping in that class. All right. So a couple other things. This looks good right now, but I want to add some additional items to it. So I had a look here. I did a little search in both Adobe Stock and in Unsplash to try to find a figure. I want to have a figure incorporated into this. So I want somebody who's far away, right? So I can have their whole body silhouette, something like this, right? Except not like that. So I want it to be faded into everything. So if you don't know, if you're not aware, there is a free category that you can choose on Adobe Stock now. They've had this for a few months, and it's of course a limited amount of content, but there's quite a bit here. And it's always worth looking to see if you can see anything that you might want to use inside of your compositions, inside of Stock, especially since it's all integrated into everything else in Adobe, right? It's sometimes hard if you're on an enterprise account because Stock kind of gets blocked from you in the free stuff, which is something I hope they fix soon. But because of that, I always have to refer the students to other sites like Unsplash, Pixabay, and things like that that are not, yeah. See, this one might, well, so I'm like, this one might be okay, but this is actually a paid asset right here. So that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is go to Unsplash. Because on Unsplash, everything's pretty free. And here's something very similar, right? There's a guy in the woods walking, pretty good. But I need to be able to isolate this guy from the background, or a lady, if I find a lady. So let's see. I'm just kind of buzzing through these. Here we go. So I want somebody, I was looking for somebody in like a robe or a dress or something, right? So let's go ahead and we'll just open this image in a new tab. And just gonna copy the image. We can just paste it in to Photoshop with the clipboard. no need to go through the hassle of dealing with downloads and things like that. All right. So let's see here. Inside of Photoshop once again. Where did OBS go? There you are. Cool. All right. So inside of Photoshop once again, let's go ahead and start plugging this in. So paste profile mismatch. So the destination is ProPhoto RGB and the working is sRGB. I'm just gonna say, okay, that's fine. Convert the colors, go for it. I don't really care that much about the colors. I really want this. So to get that, I'm gonna choose my object selection tool. And let's see if I can't select her with this. Let's see if it works well. Excuse me. I've had pretty good luck with the object selection tool in Photoshop ever since they introduced it. But we could always try select subject, select and mask, things like that. But that's pretty good. That's pretty good right there. Now there are some things we probably want to do, but maybe not, because I'm going to be using this in a way that's very silhouette, right? Yeah, let's just go and mask this out. So right now, that's pretty spooky, as it is. She's a giant lady walking through the park in a snowstorm. So cool, but there's other stuff I want to do to this, and obviously she's far too tall. Right? So let's see. I've got my mask here. I can always go ahead and enter the select and mask area of Photoshop. Let's see. How do I want to do this? That might work pretty good, actually. So I find the zoom in Photoshop is a bit laggy sometimes. All right, so we've got some bits and pieces down here in our fingers. Let's go ahead and remove those. And sometimes you have to play with some of these brushes to get it just right. Ooh, no. That's bad. I think this is going to work out better for me. Hey. I think that was the only real trouble spot that I saw. Once we get this down, it's not going to matter as much. But, you know, looking at it like this from here, it might be something that we just want to take care of inside of Photoshop here. Let's put some edge detection up. There we go. I don't know if you could see that, but if we jank this up like that, it goes through and does some pretty good radial detection. Smart radius. Let's take this down. Super tiny. Oops. I still have focus on my radius here. Yeah. Yeah. There we go. Just kind of evening this off a little bit so it's not as sharp with this refinement tool right here. Bit of feathering, and we're probably good. So I'm going to output this to a new layer with layer mask. So entirely new thing. Hit OK. There we go. So the old one is made invisible, and the new one is added and is visible. So something I do a lot in Photoshop is have duplicate layers that I sort of preserve, just in case I goof up too badly, right? All right. So I guess the first thing to do here is to make her a proper size. So let's go in here and do a Command T to get my transform tools up. And Photoshop always gets me with this now. I'm still not used to... Oh gosh. I am still not used to Photoshop doing this undo. Do we match? We match now. Cool. I'm still not used to the transform tool just constraining proportions by itself. I still hit shift. After doing it for so many years, it's very hard to get around. But I also keep most of the tools inside of any of the software at their default settings most of the time, because that's what students are going to encounter when they go in there. So it doesn't make sense for me to change it just for myself if it's going to cause problems for other people. All right, let's try that again without the shift key. There we go. So I'm trying to think both where to place her in the image, but also sort of, I don't know. She might be okay there. I'm also trying to figure out how tall she should be, just based on what I know. Let's put her right there. And now... some black and white. Make that a clipping mask, so it only affects her. Hard light looks pretty good. Vivid light. Red light. Let's go with linear light. I'm gonna add some noise to this. That's a little too clean. Pretty good. So we need to add something else to this. I like what I've done with the figure. She's well integrated into this thing, right? However, I need something over here, and I'm not sure what. Something really ominous. Let's get the moon. I've got this thing with the moon lately. So let's go to Unsplash again. Sorry, Adobe. But I'm just gonna stick with Unsplash. So let's search for moon. This takes us a bit from what we were dealing with. Oh, very nice. What were we dealing with last time when we were dealing with animating the phases of the moon? Ooh. Ooh. This one has some creepy clouds, too. It's very small, though. Need something larger. I like this one. Let's copy that image. Paste that in. Grab our object selection tool again. Easy peasy. Mask it out. Very cool. Yeah, let's use linear light again, because that worked out really well last time. And gosh, I need to turn these tips off. So I've got these tips turned off on my other machine, but I don't have them on here. If you ever want to turn those special tips off, you just go to Photoshop Preferences, and where is it? There's I can't remember. Enhanced controls? No. It's gonna be inside Tools. Show rich tooltips right there. So I don't even need tooltips. Just turn them all off. And now when I hover over these things, like the object selection tool, I don't get those little tooltips, those animated tooltips, which, you know, I mean, you may need them and they may be useful to you, but they're just, you know, I know what the object selection tool does, right? After using it a couple of times, you're good. So yeah, it's not something you always need to have on. Let's enlarge this as well. So Command T again. And I'm going to add the same kind of grain to the moon as I added to the figure. Add noise. So just adding some layer effects on here just to get a bit of a glow going. And what's nice about layer styles like this, especially the outer glow, you can actually add noise to it directly in here. which I find noise to be extremely useful when you're trying to blend different things together like this, making a composite image. I think we'll finish it off with some clouds. I'm going to use this as texture. Just pop it right on top of everything. It's a bit small, so we'll enlarge it. Man, I like how some of this stuff is looking, you know? I'm such a fan of blend modes. To the point that I probably... I may overuse them every once in a while. Gosh, I mean, something like this just looks so good. So I think what we need to do is just transform this a lot more. Because there's too much detail in there. Something like that. All right. So let's have a look at this larger still. All right. So there's stuff I want to do to this to kind of even things out a bit. And I guess I'll use the eraser tool to do this. So for the eraser tool, I can use all sorts of brushes, of course. Just going to choose general brushes, soft, round. Hardness is at 0. Let's pull the size up. And the opacity, I'm going to take down quite a bit so that I am able to have a greater degree of control over what I'm doing here. Interesting, huh? So that is actually, it's really difficult. I thought this was actually down here. I thought this was the clouds, but it turns out it's not. It's actually the snowbanks that we've got going on. So that's pretty cool. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna adjust this again. Man, I like that rich color. I mean, it's so strange because like I'm going for it as like this very, you know, sort of white, subtle kind of thing the whole time, like this. And then I add this fellow in and it's like, it takes it in a completely different direction, right? It's one of the things that's really fun about Photoshop, though, when you're doing stuff like this, is you can just play with this stuff and just keep trying different things, right? Difference. So I think she needs to be blended in a little bit better. Pick the correct one. Let's actually add some of this blue to her, which wasn't necessary before, but now that I've got this sort of like blue tint to everything going on, I think it makes sense to do that, just to even things out. Well, well. Normal ain't gonna cut it. See, I was thinking too, like when I grabbed her, oh gosh, so slow. When I grabbed her, you know, there was some words on the back of her, whatever it is that she's wearing there. And I wasn't sure if I would need to remove them or not, but apparently I don't need to. It's working out just fine as it is. Get that moon popping a little bit. All right. So with all this done, yeah, I've got a bunch of layers here, and I'm not really naming them at all. I'm going to make a layer folder or group, and I'm going to call this comp. So this is where all my stuff is going to go in terms of the actual composition. I'm going to place them into this comp folder. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I can keep some additional things separate from that. So what are these additional things? They're going to be just different layer effects, right? So adjustment layers and things like that. So 14, 15, 12, 37. 12:37 Mountain Time. Be 11:37 Pacific. So I'm going to add a new adjustment layer. The first thing I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to take this whole thing down to black and white again. Just place that above my group. There we go. And then we can sort of play with these different presets here, but we can also go through and, you know, make specific adjustments to the channels. There's this cool thing where you can sample and then pull specific colors, right? Let's take that one down a bit. And you can see here now, like, we've got some stuff going on for sure in terms of our grain here. I've got too much grain on that, but I'm going to add grain to the whole thing anyway to blend it. So, actually, I don't need this color thing open here. So if I go back in my comp layer or group, comp group, what I will find are things like, oh, and you know what? I added that destructively. So I should have made this a smart object first, and then I could tweak that. But that's not a big deal because, like I said, I'm going to add grain to the whole thing anyway. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to just add a new layer. And make sure that's white. Yes. Grab my paint bucket tool. Boom, everything's white. Multiply. And let's, once again, add some noise to this thing, right? So you can see adding noise right there. It's pretty cool. It does some cool stuff. But I'm going to want to tweak it. So I'm going to go into filters and go back to noise and add noise. Because I have the preview on, it's going to allow me to really see how this looks. Pretty cool. I like the composition. I think everything's blended pretty well. But I do want to add a bit of color to it now. And we could always go through and reuse the colors that are inherent to this thing here. But I'm going to actually add in color in a different way. Let's add an adjustment layer. I could do hue saturation, photo filter. It's just adding a bit of blue to everything. Pretty good. I'm going to quick export this comp as a ping file. And put it in my downloads. So now I can grab it from my downloads and put it directly on top of where it was, which works out pretty good. So I've basically got a copy of what I just created, because what I want to do here is add some glow to it and do some additional things like blur and not add glow. I want to add some blur to it, and I want to again use some blend modes to blend in that blur. So right now it doesn't do a whole lot because it's just sort of like sitting there. I want to put it right above my comp, of course. All right, so let's go ahead and mess with that filter right now. I'm going to do a blur filter, Gaussian blur. Boom, that really blurs it out quite a bit. Let's go with 8. And because this is a smart object, I can now toggle those filters on and off if I want to. So that is very good. But I also want to go through and do something like screen, overlay, soft light, something like that. Let's go soft light. So this is it before I did the export. This is it after the export with all the additional stuff on here. And I unintentionally created something here that looks an awful lot like, you know, some of the presets that you would see inside of Photoshop Camera for mobile devices, which I didn't exactly mean to do, but you know, what are you gonna do? I could take that down a bit. Yeah, I mean, you get to the point now where it's just like, okay, everything's assembled, and you're just sort of working with just making adjustments to all the different little layers and so forth. Just seeing how these different blend modes interact with the content. I don't know. I might just keep it like it is. Difference is okay. Exclusion might be better, though. I don't know. Let's go exclusion. All right. There we go. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, there's some other things that I might do it to it later, but for now, I'm going to call this good. So what I'll do is just export this guy, and I'll post him on Behance afterwards. So that'll work out just great. All right, well, there we go. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to be doing next week, but yeah, I'm here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, just doing different stuff. If you go to my replays, you can see I do a lot of stuff in Animate, some stuff in After Effects, Fresco. Like I said, this is probably my first Photoshop stream, so I think we made some good stuff today. And I'm going to have to get going because I got to prep for my class. So thanks, everyone who is here live. And thanks for everyone who is watching the replay, either on Behance or on YouTube. I will, let's touch base later. Hope everyone's doing well. And with that, I'm going to end the stream. So, bye all.